The largest collection of Avengers assemble for the first time ever on the big screen. What will happen? Find out when Johnnie Torch reviews Avengers Infinity War. Well, welcome everybody. That's a bit of a throwback to the old days when I used to script these videos and I could, you know, regale you with some dramatic prose. But basically, I just got out of the movie about 45 minutes ago. I had to get myself a little dinner first, of course, because I did say this review would air at 7 p.m. It is now almost 10 past 8, but better late than never. And here we are. Welcome to a live edition of Johnnie Torch Reviews on Johnnie Torch Live. We're on our 74th big edition. I've got the chat room open in case anybody wants to share their thoughts if you've seen the movie yet. I couldn't resist. I had to find, there was one solitary seat remaining free in the theater today, let alone this weekend. It's really difficult to get these, to get seats to this movie. It's been sold out so far in advance, but I managed to catch an afternoon showing. Packed house. Everybody had fun. A lot of kids, which is fun because you could hear their reactions and so forth. They were generally well behaved. Usually, if you have some troublesome kids, it might be a problem. But it's fun to hear their reactions to the heroes and stuff. The action is so great in this film. I do question though whether maybe it is appropriate for kids that are below a certain age, maybe below 10, 9. I don't know. I would be a little concerned. Although, I watched probably much more intense stuff when I was a kid. It depends, it depends on the parent and what you think your kid can handle. This is going to be a spoiler review, but I did want to take about 2 minutes here to just generally talk about the movie in case you don't want to hear spoilers, even though I don't know why you would have clicked on this, that it says spoilers in the title if you didn't intend on hearing spoilers. But great movie, action-packed, very dramatic, lots of heart, very funny in some places. It was I laughed out loud a couple of times, 3 or 4 times maybe, more than a couple. Some great performances really as well. I thought Thanos was realized very well. He doesn't look as imposing on the trailers or on the poster art or whatever, but that was a pretty good performance for a CGI character. What was essentially, let's say maybe 95% CGI. So a lot of good acting, shown through the CGI. All the heroes were great. A couple of unexpected things happened. I wasn't as dramatically shocked as maybe I was expecting to be at some of the events unfolding, but some of them were surprising. And, big thumbs up for me. Is it in the top 5 best Marvel films? I say no. I'm not sure where I place this, but the cream of the crop is the top 5. I don't really think this film breaks into the top 5, but it is, a worthwhile film. I think the thing is this feels very much like a setup movie. There's ways of doing the cliffhanger where, like, The Empire Strikes Back does it very well, where it feels like a self-contained story. Then there are films like The Two Towers, which I would say this was more like, where it felt like the story kind of just stops abruptly, and there's obviously more to be told. I hope that wasn't a spoiler, but that was my just vague, feelings about the film just coming out of it. So from here on in, spoilers abound. There be spoilers here. Spoiler warning. And I can't say it any more times. Spoiler warning. If you don't want to know anything else about the film, if you haven't seen the film, don't watch anymore. And see the film first. Come back and, tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. But for now, we are going to get heavy into spoilers. So picking up where I just left off, I think, as I said, this kind of reminded me of The Two Towers, where it was very well, battle heavy for one thing. In the last half of the film, it felt very much like set up for a big payoff. It didn't really feel like a self-contained episode, and I kind of question why they didn't feel the need to call this Infinity War Part One, unless maybe there is a reason that we will discover when we see the second part why it wouldn't be called that. But this very clearly is only the part one of a bigger story. There's nothing resolved here, unless you want to consider that the bad guy wins and take it from there. But yeah, let's try to break these things down. I'm coming into this here with basically no notes whatsoever. Like I said at the beginning, I literally came home half hour ago, so I really didn't get a chance to write any thoughts. We're just going to take the characters and a couple of the scenes that I want to talk about, bit by bit. All right, so we start off with the Thor, and the first death, of course, is very early on. We had Hamdall's death, which, not surprising, Idris Elba kind of has made public, I think, that he wasn't too interested in coming back. So that was, upsetting and somewhat disappointing. But, of course, the more, for lack of a better term, shocking death was, of course, Loki. And Loki's death, of course, has happened a couple of times in the MCU, but we got someone in the chat room here. Let me just take a look. It says, Keith HD. Yay back to you, Keith. If you got any questions about the movie, let me know what you thought about it. So Loki's the first one to die. Kind of not unexpected. Again, some of these deaths were not really overly shocking. We kind of expected them. I think what was most shocking about some of the deaths is who didn't die. Everybody, I think, went into this film thinking Iron Man, Captain America, maybe Thor. These were all ironclad, solid bets on kicking the bucket. And strangely, if you went into it with that mindset, you were to be sorely disappointed because they are the ones that actually survived. But yeah, it was a nice moment for Loki because I've always said I'm not really too fond of the idea of Loki turning complete babyface, to use a wrestling jargon. But I like the way he went out here, where he sort of became the better part of himself, where he still had that brotherly affection. It's like no matter how many times he stabs you in the back, you're his brother, and you're gonna shed blood for him. And that's kind of what happens here. I mean, he was a pain to Thor in all those films. He was a pain to Odin, but he ultimately really he had a family loyalty about him, Loki, and that's one of the things I like the most. One of the only things I kind of was disappointed about his death is that he really didn't get a chance to, go out fighting. He kind of just like went out, trying to assassinate Thanos. But, for the god of mischief, I suppose that was a fitting death where he tried to, trick him with a dagger up his sleeve and, try to take him out that way. So it's fitting, I suppose. All right, so next thing that happens, my boy, the Hulk. If anybody knows me, my all-time favorite hero is the Hulk. He just gets decimated by Thanos. He just gets trashed. And sadly, that's the only time we see the Hulk in this film. So you know that I judge these films, the Avengers ones, particularly on the usage of the Hulk, because he's my favorite character, and unfortunately, Marvel does not got the brains to do some kind of deal with Universal to give us solo Hulk movies. So anyway, in a sense, I didn't like him losing to Thanos because the Hulk is the strongest one there is, by self-admission. He should be the strongest one there is in the Marvel Universe. And they try to tiptoe around that by not letting him emerge again for the rest of the movie. That was another thing that was very incomplete, where we didn't really understand why the Hulk refused to come out. That kind of was also a little disappointing to me because I'm from the old school where anger is what releases the Hulk. and the Hulk doesn't really have a say in when he manifests. So I was a little torn on that concept where he has to give his permission to emerge. In Banner throughout the movie is basically at key times trying to tell the Hulk to come out, and the Hulk doesn't want to come out. So I was a little disappointed in that, but especially because I'm a big Hulk fan, I would have liked to see him more active in this film. But the thing is, if you got the Hulk taking on Thanos, the Hulk should win that fight because, as I said, Hulk is the strongest one there is. All right, so yeah, I like the way also that they kind of dropped the Black Widow romance. I really wasn't too fond of that originally in Age of Ultron, and they kind of carried it on a little bit in Thor Ragnarok, but they kind of just mention it in passing here and don't make a whole lot out of it, which was probably for the best. There's no need to really belabor that, seeing as how it really wasn't probably the right idea in the first place. Rumors were that Betty Ross was going to be in this film, and I was pretty excited about that, to see them try to restore that relationship. But unfortunately, not only is she not in it, she's not even mentioned. We do get General Ross again, or Secretary Ross, I suppose, as he's now designated, which was a fun cameo. Speaking of cameos, some of the more interesting cameos, of course, we had Stan the Man Lee. Stan came in as the bus driver, and that got a laugh out of everybody. This is the first time you've ever seen spaceships, something like that. That was a good cameo. And of course, Stan is the king of cameos. The other most interesting cameo, if you want to call it, was the appearance of the Red Skull. The first time we ever seen the Red Skull since First Avenger. And I'm torn on this one because I'm glad they finally, answered that, burning question that had been going on for so long. Where is the Red Skull? And it's answered, but he's some kind of a wraith in some kind of strange sort of Star Trek Guardian-esque planet or something where the Soul Stone is kept. How did he live there? How did he survive there? Why is he staying there? Why doesn't he try to get out? I guess we're never going to see him face Captain America again. All that stuff was kind of disappointing to me. So it was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I'm glad they addressed it and didn't keep it as this, lingering question that everybody would have. But at the same time, what are you going to do with him now? You're just going to leave him on this planet and just kicking around rocks? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what to make of that. So yeah, let's get to the story proper. We had a split up of the heroes. Tony, we'll start with Tony and Pepper. That's another cameo we haven't talked about though. But we got Gwyneth Paltrow back for a scene, Pepper Potts and Tony talking about the upcoming wedding, and that right away made me concerned because this is sort of like a cop 2 weeks from retirement. When they keep talking about this wedding, that means somebody's going to die. At least that's the impression I was getting. It's that standard old trope, keep talking about retirement and you're not going to make it out. But, another thing that's interesting is that they completely decimated Asgard. Is Thor supposed to be the only survivor? They didn't at all address what happened to Valkyrie. They didn't address that at all. That was another thing that I found very interesting. I thought she was set up to be this... Well, the way they ended Ragnarok, they pretty much set up all of Asgard to be some kind of, people that were going to colonize another world or something. And now basically all of Asgard's dead. They don't have anybody left. They don't have Valkyrie anymore, and Lady Sif, heaven knows where she is. I just thought that was interesting that they basically dropped that whole storyline. And if there was to be a Thor 4, which I don't know if that's in doubt now, what do you do from here? I don't know. So we got Thor goes off. That was pretty funny. The meeting of Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. We got the Rubber Band Man song. That felt very fitting to the proceedings for the Guardians. I'm kind of disappointed they didn't put no AC/DC on for Tony Stark because that was a big thing in like Phase 1, and we completely forgot about it now. But yeah, so. Thor and Rocket and Groot, which Groot also, of course, is funny, and this is the adolescent Groot. They go off to get the a new hammer to forge, and Peter Dinklage. That was a really unexpected thing. Of course, another one of those things. Peter Dinklage, of course, is a little person, and he's playing a giant in this film. That was just, you know, great concept there. And that was pretty funny seeing how Thor had to basically put himself in the heart of the blast furnace in order to fashion this weapon. Apparently, this was what was going to be able to kill Thanos. And, unfortunately, he didn't aim for the head, as Thanos says. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Then, of course, like I said, we have the Tony, Peter, and Doctor Strange. A cameo of Wong, of course, at the beginning of the film. And they're trying to take on what they call his underlings. Black Maw or something was the guy that got Doctor Strange and tortured him. Like I said, a lot of torture, a lot of death, and stuff that was, like I said, I don't know how kids would react to this. This is like really intense stuff. And so Tony decides to take the fight to Thanos, which was probably the best plan, because on the one hand, though, you think maybe Thanos is too powerful in his own home world, but then again, you don't want him to land on Earth and start overrunning Earth the way eventually he does in Wakanda. So let's get to Gamora. I thought Gamora was honestly the MVP in this film, and that was something that really surprised me, because I was not really a big fan of Gamora in the first two Guardians of the Galaxy films. I mean, she's all right, she's serviceable, but if you want to rank them as to my favorites, Gamora was always last. I mean, I even put Nebula before her, because Nebula's a more interesting character, in all honesty. But this movie really did right by Gamora. And I got to say that I think that Zoe Saldana really played, she acted in spades here. I mean, she just really was heart-wrenching, and all these emotional scenes where she's asking Peter to kill her if it comes to that. And Peter was actually going to kill her if it wasn't for the reality stone changing the blast. It would have been Peter killing her. And of course, you have her trying to assassinate Thanos. That was a great scene. And then, of course, Thanos actually killing her, which, of course, was also very powerful. And then we have the team up of Thor and of Iron Man and Spider-Man and the Guardians trying to get the gauntlet off Thanos. And Doctor Strange says that there was only a 1 in 14 million chance that one of their plans would succeed. And apparently that was the plan they chose. And it would have worked, I suppose, if it wasn't for Peter, going nuts when he found out that, Gamora died. And, it's sad, because that probably would have ended it right there if they could have, if he would have just, not gotten emotional. But we know that he can get emotional from the last movie. And he's a good actor too, of course. Chris Pratt, he brought the emotion too in that scene. And in the other scenes that we mentioned as well. I was wondering why they didn't just try to cut Thanos' arm off instead of trying to pull the gauntlet off. But apparently he's very durable, let's say, because when they had the image of, because it was an illusion of Gamora stabbing Thanos, it appeared that he was very, able to be, injured. You could inflict injury on him, and it wouldn't, he wouldn't resist it. But then, when it comes to something like that, when I said to myself, well, why didn't they just cut his hand off? Apparently, maybe he was too durable. I don't know. It's very confusing in that sense. I was wondering. But I have a feeling that's where Thor's axe is going to come in eventually. And he's going to end up probably liberating that glove from Thanos' arm with the axe. All right, so we also have, let's talk about Captain America and his band there. Now, Captain America shows up to save Vision and Scarlet Witch. They've become an item. Again, that was also a very emotional core of the story. Was, I think the emotional core of the story revolved around Peter's feelings for Gamora, Thanos feeling for Gamora, and the Scarlet Witch is feeling for Vision, and vice versa. Because at both parties in this film basically ask their loved ones to kill them, which is a pretty intense thing. Of course, in Vision's case, he is an artificial being, but he is a sentient being still. And of course, Scarlet Witch is in love with him. One of the things that they don't really explain is how Vision changed his appearance to look human. That was something that really wasn't explained. They also didn't really explain how Thanos got the which was the stone? The first one, that's the Power Stone, I believe. They didn't explain that, but they had a line in passing of how he decimated Mandar or something, and got that stone sort of off screen. That's kind of interesting. The Collector also gets a cameo here. We were talking about cameos. So an interesting thing we have too is Nebula showing up. We didn't really, get any inkling of that she was going to be already caught at this point, and another person tortured. I thought the Doctor Strange torture was really cool, though. 1,000 little needles, pinpointing at him, and that was a pretty cool scene. Especially the way they blasted him like the alien from the movie Alien. That was pretty cool. So yeah, again, well, bouncing around here to all different aspects, but going back to the Scarlet Witch and Vision, again, she ends up, doing what is asked of her and actually kills Vision, kills her man, kills her artificial man, and blows him up. And of course, the Time Stone, already given to Thanos by Doctor Strange, actually sets that back. So it's like he's kind of crying crocodile tears, so to speak, when he sees this happen, because he knows he can just turn it back. And that was also an interesting thing when Tony gets stabbed. The guy sitting next to me really reacted to that, because kind of thought like for a moment that was the end. He doesn't die in this movie. Now, I'm going to be disappointed if he dies of his wound in the next movie, one of these things where he just kicks the bucket because he's got internal bleeding. That just wouldn't sit well with me. If you're going to take him out in a way that he don't just linger on for another, 2 hours of movie time, whatever it would be in real life, whatever, 2 days, 2 weeks, whatever it is. We got some action with some of the side heroes back. We got Rhodey, who's able to walk now with the help of those braces. We've got White Wolf, a.k.a. Winter Soldier, a.k.a. Bucky Barnes, a.k.a. James Buchanan Barnes. That was fun seeing him, reunite with Cap briefly. They really didn't share a scene too much beyond that, just seeing each other for the first time in a while. Falcon is back. Didn't really get a whole lot to see with them in action, but it was good to see that they were involved. Hawkeye is noticeably absent. I'm wondering if maybe they're saving him for, probably for part 4, but, are they saving him for the Ant-Man movie? Because Ant-Man, of course, was noticeably absent. In fact, when we see the end of the film, if the post-credit scene, I was also wondering where was Nick Fury and Maria Hill. And while they got, disintegrated, I thought maybe that Ant-Man would be in that car, because they opened the door and whatever it was, a van or something, and nobody's in it. I thought for a minute there maybe it was going to be, Ant-Man, and then he would grow to regular size, but that would probably interfere with the Ant-Man movie, the Ant-Man the Wasp movie that's coming out. All right, so Captain America, let's go back to him. Captain America, I was a little disappointed. As you know, I'm disappointed when they don't wear their costumes. And this costume that Cap has is not really the Captain America suit. He doesn't wear a mask at all, which, of course, you wonder why he would need a mask, seeing as how the whole world knows his identity, but that's part of the costume. He didn't even have it. The shield was very disappointing. How do you have Captain America without seeing him throw a shield? That shield that the Black Panther gave him, gosh, I would have thrown it back at the Wakandan techs, because it was terrible. That wasn't a shield. That wasn't, it was like a gauntlet thing that he could just fit around his arm. I wanted to see him throw something that would, be akin to his shield, even if it wasn't the round famous one. Maybe you could have a triangle one that would be somewhat dangerous and sharp. I don't know. One of the things that I caught on to very early was they still, because Cap didn't really get a whole lot of, you know, scenes with pathos. He just didn't really get a chance to shine in that way. But he did have that one moment where Vision is sort of like offering himself up to, you know, get demolished in order to let the soul gem or whatever it is. That wasn't the soul gem; it was the mind gem. Yeah, he's in order to let the mind gem be destroyed or something, and he's like, no, we don't sacrifice one for all, or words to that effect. And of course, Vision comes back at him at the end of the movie with that. But that felt very much in keeping with Captain America. He's not going to sacrifice one man for the rest of the world. And when the Vision brings this up to him that he did the same thing back in World War II, and he put the plane in the ice to sacrifice one man for the world. He says that he had no choice. The Vision still had a choice, even though it didn't pan out to their satisfaction. Black Widow, again, didn't really have a lot to do in this movie. I mean, with scenes of importance, gravitas, or whatever. She got a couple of good action scenes, fighting the Proximorta, whatever her name was. They didn't say their names all that often, so I'm not too sure. It was interesting that, the rumor was true that Bruce Banner was in the Hulkbuster armor. Again, this is another thing that I'm not overly fond of, Banner being part of the action, but I guess, in absence of the Hulk, it was pretty, important to have him involved in saving the world, the universe, in fact. So Black Panther, of course, also a big part of this movie. Very interesting. Again, he had, the gravitas of the Black Panther film behind him. But I think stripping that away, if you didn't see the Black Panther, you came into this cold, you probably wouldn't have felt that he did a whole lot here either, because he basically only rallied the troops, so to speak. He got M'Baku on the team, and he's got Shuri working on Vision, but he didn't really get a chance to really do anything too much on his own. So, same as Black Widow, same as most of the supporting characters. But, you kind of expect a little more from them, but they didn't really get a whole lot of screen time. Maybe that'll be different in the sequels. Who knows? In at least the part 4. Some funny stuff there, of course, with Drax, and I thought that was one of the funnier things. Some of the action with him, where in the scene where he's standing there watching Gamora and Star-Lord, that was pretty funny. And gee, there really isn't too much to say, because, as I said, this really feels like a setup for the next film. It works on its own, but only in as much as you have to see the next part. Otherwise, it feels somewhat incomplete, at least in my estimation. And all right, so let's get to the end about the deaths of what happens here. A lot of them were unexpected. Well, we already talked about Loki, Gamora, but I'm talking about the like all the Guardians of the Galaxy, with the exception, I believe, of Rocket, Scarlet Witch, of course, Vision, which Thanos took the stone out of his head. Doctor Strange, which was a big one to me. That was a shocker, really, because with Doctor Strange gone, he is so powerful. He really is the only one. If you want, the brains, the mystic arts, you need Doctor Strange. And if you want the brute strength, you need the Hulk. Apparently, Hulk won't come out to play, and Doctor Strange is gone now. So it's going to be really hard for me to buy exactly who's going to beat Thanos at the end of it all. But Doctor Strange, boy, that was cool, too, when he was taking on Thanos and he was multiplying himself like 16,000 times. Oh, boy, that was awesome. I love that scene, because I keep saying to myself while I was watching, I was like, when is Doctor Strange going to cut loose? I mean, this guy could, like, make portals and send him to, Pluto or something. And, you did get a sense that he was trying some things at that last battle there. But it's like, with a guy that can do near anything, I kind of felt like, well, when is he going to try something really kooky? When is he going to get really crazy? And a couple of times there, in the last battle, he sort of did. We got another question answered about the arc reactor because everybody was saying, why does Tony have the arc reactor on his chest again? From what I understand, because they just kind of mentioned it in passing at the beginning with Pepper in that scene, he has another arc reactor attached to his chest, but this is not one I don't believe that is in his chest. It's not powering his heart. It's not it's independent of him. It's not something that is a part of him or connected to him. But it's connected to him, but it's not in him, so to speak, as you've seen in the original Iron Man, where it basically fits in a slot. I don't believe that's the case here. I think he's just like connecting it to his, neural system or whatever techno babble you want to use. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And the deaths of a lot of them were just like quick, like Bucky and T'Challa and stuff. But the one that was probably the most emotional was Spider-Man, because he's just a kid, and he's like going to Tony, and he's like, I don't want to die, and Tony's like, you'll be all right, you'll be all right, and it's like he just turned to dust. And that was probably the most emotional thing, especially for those of us who are like diehard fans of Spider-Man from way back when. I still, I kind of have problems with this Spider-Man, though. Not so much Tom Holland, who I think is really good. I still feel like they got him too much as the kid. I was never fond of Spider-Man as the kid. I like the college-age Spider-Man, the the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, where he was at that right age, where he wasn't really a kid. I mean, this Tom Holland is probably around, I don't know what he is, like 22, 21, 22, something like that. He's probably old enough to play older Spider-Man, but he's still playing 16-year-old Spider-Man, and he's going to probably keep playing 16-year-old Spider-Man. But, like, I don't like him still calling him Mr. Stark. He should be calling him Iron Man or something. Or, and then I still don't like Tony. This is the second time where he's what the adults are talking. This is Spider freaking Man. This is not Spidey, the boy wonder. You know what I mean? I don't like the way they're, like, disrespecting Spider-Man, to be honest with you. I don't like the way that's been played in the MCU, and they're still doing it in this film. So that kind of disappoints me. Like I said, just the small things like that really is the only things that I have a gripe with in this film. But the most thing that, like I said, that kind of holds me back on it is it does feel fairly incomplete. It feels incomplete in a sense. It doesn't feel like we've got the whole story here, and the better part is the next part, because, I think the thing is, they built Thanos up so well. I want to see him fall in the worst way. And, let's get to his motivations, Thanos, because that's another thing that was sort of changed from the comics. As you know, from the comics, he was, fixated on pleasing Death, Lady Death. And I liked the Silver Surfer animated version where he was trying to, sacrifice and please a statue that represented death. And so that he was like just that bleep crazy, and he just, wanted to kill and court this image he had in his mind of death that he wanted to please, but it wasn't even a sentient thing. It was an inanimate object. I liked that concept, but here I understand what they were going for, and it works to an extent. It's sort of the Ra's al Ghul type thing again, of course, where it's like mankind doesn't know how to regulate itself, and somebody needs to step up and be the emotionless arbiter of who should live and who should die, and keep the cycle moving, so there won't be any more famine, pestilence, death, war. I can eliminate all that because I'm going to step up and do what needs to be done, because nobody else has the guts or the lack of conscience to, separate, the chaff from the wheat, or whatever, analogy you want to use. And, and it's interesting because he is dispassionate about how he's doing it. He's not doing it out of only the strong survive. He's doing a very complete picture of some of the weak will live, some of the strong will live, some of the old will die, some of the young will die. He's not really making this about any particular survival for one group. And so that's an interesting thing that, it's something that, it works and it's not played with very much in other areas. So that was very interesting. And it's interesting to see that he had a soul, because it's hard to believe that he did, because he actually did have feelings for Gamora as a adoptive father. And Gamora doesn't even believe that he has these feelings. She's like laughing in his face when the Red Skull says he needs to have some, he needs to sacrifice the thing he loves the most. And she thinks that means that he'll never have the stone, because, he is incapable of loving anything that much. But he really does love Gamora, as, perverse as his thinking is or whatever. He does, in fact, do have feelings for his adoptive daughters, or at least Gamora. I don't know. Perhaps he doesn't have as strong a feeling for Nebula, because he's apparently tortured her and taken her apart several times. I was surprised to see Nebula survived, because I thought she was going to die early on in this film. But, to be honest with you, she deserves to see the end of Thanos because of what he did to her. It would be really unfair to have her just killed off, I think. So, oh man, there's so much to this here to unpack. Let's see. We haven't talked about, let's see, Mantis and the Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit more. They used Mantis to great effect, trying to put Thanos to sleep. That was pretty funny. She's a funny character as it is. I mean, I didn't take to her all that much in Guardians 2. I mean, she was fine. I didn't dislike her. But I was like, yeah, she's fine. That's great, but let's move on. But no, she's actually very good here. I mean, there was some humorous things, and her powers were used to great effect. It was pretty interesting to see how they used her. Oh, we got Thor getting the replacement eye. For some reason, Rocket's got a thing with prosthetic limbs and things. He's making a comment to Bucky about his arm as well, and he managed to facilitate a new eye for Thor, which I think is for the best. I wasn't really digging the eye patch look, although I understand why they were doing it. It was sort of like the son becomes the father and the father the son type thing from Superman. But now he's got one brown eye, one blue eye. I don't know if they'll be able to change that, but kind of interesting. They don't really explain why Black Widow is blonde or why Steve has got the beard. I mean, I guess he's probably trying to keep undercover, low profile, and the same with Black Widow. But, they don't really outwardly address that. They do say they're still wanted by the law. And it kind of is strange that they won't, again, we've got another film. That's what I mean. That's why it feels like it's very incomplete. This feels sort of like a mini series that, this is like the first two nights, and you still need to see the next two nights in order to, get the whole story. It's going to be a long wait, believe me. But, so, what was I, what was I going on about for a minute there? But, yeah, the action, of course, was very good. It was very exciting. We've got Thanos destroying a moon, apparently, or whatever it was, to smite them with rocks and stuff. That was pretty fun and exciting. It was as good as advertised, the film, I would say. I don't know. Kind of felt like I felt like everybody got their fair share of screen time, I think. Like I said, I think maybe Cap and his team probably could have used a little bit more. Tony got, I think, a decent amount. Thor, I don't know so much in screen time. I think what he was trying to accomplish felt like he got enough screen time because he was doing what he needed to do in order to get this, to excuse a phrase from Wonder Woman, God killer device that he was trying to get. But yeah, and that was a pretty tense scene too with Tony when he's going in the ship and he's talking to Pepper, and the single's breaking up, and you get the sense that, like, is this the last time for them too? Is this the last time? Like I said, it just felt like very much, you know, like I said, not to repeat myself, but that they're telegraphing that they're going to be separated. And like I said, I was prepared to be disappointed if they all died, but it only makes sense that they kept the main characters alive because somebody has to fight Thanos in the next film. And and the film ends with him being very contented that he accomplished what he set out to do. And of course, someone is going to have to get that gauntlet off him and turn things back the way they were. I'm not sure exactly, how it's possible, like I said, especially without Doctor Strange, who knows how to manipulate these time stones and gemstones and everything. That's what I was trying to say. Was this, of course, is also a great sequel to Civil War because we've pretty much seen the pickup of Ragnarok, but Tony almost calls Cap, and he just doesn't get to it. It's one of those things where they probably could have made him, call, but he sort of like just stops and is, distracted by the action out in the street. But we were this close to having a, reunion of them. And it's going to be interesting to see how that reunion takes place in the next movie, because I imagine that's the next step, is we got to get them back together. And who do we have left? I think we just have the core members, right? And that might be part of the reason why we only have the core members from the first movie. And we can finally hear him say, Captain America say, Avengers assemble. Because I was thinking maybe that might be something that he does in the last act as well. But of course, Tony wasn't there to, be part of it. So of course that wasn't going to happen. But I think that's where we're leading to in the next movie. We can finally get them all together. I like the way Thor looked. I like I said, they try to make them all look a little different. Thor gets the eye back. He looks pretty much normal. He had the costume on the same. I guess they're gonna keep with the short hair. I don't know. I kind of feel like Thor needs long hair, but who knows? Whatever. I don't know. And Thor says to Captain America, "You're trying to look like me with the beard." I see, which was pretty cute. Um, yeah. So that about wraps it up. I don't know too much more of what I have to say that I haven't already said, because, like I said, this is just coming straight off of seeing the movie for the first time. I am going to see it again on Tuesday, so maybe I'll have some more. After cogitating a while on it and seeing it a second time, I'll probably have some more to say. Don't want to just beat stuff into the ground. We've gone on for I don't know, 45 minutes, I guess, at this point. So, as I said, I don't know where I would rank this. I probably wouldn't put it in the top 5. Does it make the top 10? Maybe. I don't know. It's like I said, it's great for what it is. This is a very large piece of a long puzzle that's been going on for 10 years. And it felt like it. I think, like I said, if you came into this cold and you didn't know Black Panther, and you didn't know Guardians of the Galaxy, and you didn't know anything apart from, the first few films in Phase 1, Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, if you just seen them, you probably couldn't get into this and fully understand it. This was the payoff for a long built-up process that, has been building and building to this fevered pitch. And it was a payoff, a worthy payoff, but like I said, it does feel incomplete. It doesn't feel like a full experience. It feels like, we got to a certain point, and that's what cliffhanger is supposed to do. You want to come back. It makes you want to come back and see what else happens. I just feel like, in a sense, it not being resolved, it feels very incomplete to me. It doesn't feel as satisfactory as if we had an Empire Strikes Back ending with, Luke and Leia looking out at the nebula or whatever that was, with the Falcon taking off, and you knew better days were coming. This one ends on a much downer note where we don't really know what's going to happen. Everybody's gone except some of the key original Avengers from the original roster. And we know that they're going to come back and do something, but there's no moment of, we're going to regroup, we're going to gather together, and we're going to figure this out. This is just stop them cold, and you know, who knows what's going to happen next. It's just, you know, it's a moment of hopelessness, and we linger on that hopelessness, and there's nothing really to bring us out of it until we see the next film. It's like a very uncomfortable place to be left as a viewer because of what we've seen. It's one thing to have a lot of loss, which we do in this film, but there really isn't, like I said, the sense of where we go from here. And I think I missed that. That's the only thing I think I'm saying that makes it feel a little, um, somewhat lacking as a cliffhanger goes, So anyway, where do I place it? I don't know. I would still say I would probably place it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe probably in the teens, I guess. Probably among like where I put Black Panther and Doctor Strange and Ant-Man. They're sort of like 12, 13, and 14, something like that. I feel like that's probably where it's going to wind up. I don't think it's a disappointment like Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. Those were films that I felt were a disappointment, and they're at the like tail end. That would be like 16, 17, 18. This does not feel like a disappointment, but it, like I said, it does feel like sort of an unresolved uh, issue. I mean, there's like an incompleted symphony. It needs to be something that would have a hook to leave the film on. It just feels like come back next week and we'll see the rest of the show. It doesn't feel like really a completed film in itself, to me anyway. But it's still a great film. I'm going to give this one. This is the question. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. I think that might be underrating it a little. I think if I see this one again in a couple of days, which I'm going to, I think I'm going to probably wish I would have rated it a little higher. I I could go 4.5 stars, but I think I am going to go 4 stars out of 5. 4 stars out of 5 for Avengers: Infinity War. And again, it's a great film. I don't have really any bad criticisms of it. I think everybody really got their time to shine. Everybody was more or less done right by, like I said, there's little things like I would have wished Captain America would have been a little more in costume and with the shield, and maybe a few more moments would have been nice between Falcon and Bucky, and stuff that you really can't do because you don't have time to do it, but it would have been nice to see them back together again, Falcon and Bucky, or Cap and Falcon and Bucky, just like little moments. But when you have a 2.5 hour movie, you really can't do that. So I don't fault them for that. I don't like lower the rating because of that. But yeah, maybe a couple of those things would have been interesting. Kind of also, like I said, a little disappointed with the Hulk not being a factor in it later on, and kind of wondering why, although I know why he wasn't in it, because he probably would have mopped the floor with Thanos. I mean, if he can mop up, Thor and Loki and stuff, he should be able to mop up with Thanos. But I'm more talking about, I was kind of disappointed in why he was able to resist transformation and Banner couldn't transform. Not that I think Banner should transform by will, but I think with the anger being the trigger, he should have been angry enough at this point to transform. So that was kind of an issue too for me. But like I said, apart from that, what do we do about with the deaths? Like I said, apparently everybody was so afraid that the main cast was going to die. The big fear is really that the sequel will be the film where the main cast dies, because that's where the resolution of the story is. I mean, we didn't really think that the whole cast was going to die and it was going to be up to like War Machine, Bucky, and I don't know, Shuri to, win the day. I didn't think that's the way it was going to go. So it's not really a disappointment because I didn't really think that was going to happen. Also, we got to talk briefly before we wrap it up here about the, like I said, the post-credit scene where they tease Captain Marvel. Apparently, Captain Marvel will turn up in the next film. It really doesn't make much sense the way they did it, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen, because obviously Nick had her on speed dial, so she probably already appeared in this timeline, because we know the next film, the film of Captain Marvel's, will take place in the 90s. So she's apparently back already. Although, you never know. Post-credit tags are notorious in Marvel for not really making sense once the sequel does come out. So it's just like a guideline to give you an idea what's going to happen next. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. And it's also an interesting thing where they don't say the Avengers will return at the end of the credits. They say Thanos will return. So quite an ominous thing. And he sat down and, he felt like he did a job well done. He got the plan executed to perfection. So it's going to be all the more satisfying to see his downfall, see him getting taken down. Oh yeah, as I was saying, the deaths, Gamora's death. Well, actually, everybody that died pretty much has to come back, because we know that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is in the works. So I don't think Gamora's going to stay dead. Obviously, they killed off the entire Guardians except for a Rocket. So the Guardians will be back. We also know that Black Panther's getting a sequel, so he's not going to stay gone. Spider-Man's getting a sequel, so he's not going to stay gone. They didn't really make a big statement of Doctor Strange being back, but this was actually Doctor Strange's movie for the most part. I thought he got the most benefit out of this one. If you want to say, like, the original Avengers was kind of a sequel for Thor, because it shows the aftermath with Loki, Thor meeting up with the rest of the Avengers and how he meets them and everything, being so far removed from them. It felt very much like a Thor sequel. And I think this film feels very much like a Doctor Strange sequel. And I think that's the reason why, because he's so important here, they haven't greenlit a sequel yet, because we've got to find out what happens to him here first. Once we get past that, then we'll be able to know what to do with Doctor Strange going forward. Of course, we've got Baron Mordo still out there. That needs to be resolved. But then again, we had the Red Skull out there for so long. We had the leader out there still to this day, not knowing what's going on with him. So you never know. You never know how these things are going to go. But yeah, and that's another thing. We still don't get that Red Skull thing really resolved. What's going to happen with that? I don't know. So thank you for joining me here for this, rambling review of Avengers Infinity War after having just seen the movie basically an hour before this broadcast started, about 45 minutes. And while it was still fresh in my mind, I'm just rattling it off to you as I would a friend. Let me know what you think about the movie in the comments below. Let me know what you're excited about in Avengers 4. What do you want to see happen? What do you hope doesn't happen? Do you think there's going to be any deaths to take? Is there going to be any new deaths that are going to occur in Part 4? Are we going to finally hear Avengers Assemble uttered by Captain America, or will it be somebody else? And how will Thanos go down and fight in battle and struggle with our heroes, the Avengers? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for joining me, and this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon. Avengers, assemble!